The rule was so small it barely deserved attention. One sentence buried deep in a document nobody actually reads, something vague enough to sound harmless, but flexible enough to be weaponized later. At the time, I didn't think twice about it. I just moved into what looked like a quiet, well-kept neighborhood. Clean sidewalks, identical mailboxes, friendly smiles that felt rehearsed but harmless. The kind of place that promises peace if you just blend in. I followed every rule without effort, paid my HOA dues automatically, and assumed the association existed purely in the background of my life. For years, nothing happened. No letters, no complaints, no warnings. That's when the first notice felt unreal. It appeared in my mailbox without a sound, folded neatly, written in cold, formal language that didn't even bother explaining what I had done wrong. Just a violation number, a compliance deadline, and the implication that I was now on record. I reread it 3 times, convinced it was a mistake. I hadn't changed anything. My house looked exactly the same as it had for years. But suddenly, according to the HOA, I was a problem. I emailed them calmly, politely, expecting an easy fix. Days passed with no reply. Then another letter arrived. This one mentioned fines. Still no explanation. That's when confusion turned into discomfort. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. Neighbors who used to wave now avoided eye contact. Someone slowed down when driving past my house. A woman I'd barely recognized stood across the street one afternoon, pretending to check her phone while staring at my property. The neighborhood hadn't changed, but my place in it had. When the HOA finally responded, the explanation felt intentionally unclear. The rule hadn't changed, they said. It was simply being reinterpreted. Something that had been allowed for years was now suddenly unacceptable. I asked why I was the only one being cited when several houses had the same thing. The response was short and dismissive. Other violations will be handled separately. That's when it clicked. This wasn't enforcement. This was selection. The fines began stacking weekly. Each letter sounded more aggressive than the last. Phrases like continued non-compliance and further action appeared, without ever clearly stating what that action would be. The ambiguity was the point. It kept me anxious, checking my mailbox every day, wondering what new threat would be waiting. My own home started to feel hostile, like I was living under surveillance instead of ownership. I tried doing everything the right way. I attended HOA meetings where board members avoided eye contact and spoke in rehearsed legal phrases. I brought photos, past approvals, even copies of older HOA newsletters that contradicted their new interpretation. None of it mattered. Every question I asked was treated like defiance. Every attempt to explain myself was framed as resistance. The rule was no longer about appearance or order. It was about obedience. Then the pressure escalated. Notices turned into warnings. Warnings turned into deadlines. I was told contractors could be sent to my property without my consent. Liens were mentioned casually, like a reminder instead of a threat. Sleep became difficult. Every knock, every unfamiliar car outside made my stomach drop. Friends told me to just comply, to make it go away. But the more I gave in, the more demands appeared. Fix this, remove that, pay more, apologize, submit. The moment I realized how deep the nightmare had gone was when I received a final notice that contradicted everything I had already done. I had complied exactly as instructed, yet I was still in violation. That's when it hit me. Compliance was never the goal. Control was. The rule was just a tool, and once they decided I was the example, there was no version of enough that would satisfy them. What started as a simple HOA rule had turned into a slow, grinding psychological war. Not loud, not dramatic, just constant, calculated pressure designed to wear you down until you stop fighting back. And the scariest part wasn't what they did, it was how easily they did it. Quietly, legally, with smiles and signatures. If it could happen to me, It could happen to anyone who thinks those rules don't really matter.